as he neared Damascus on his journey. Suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him.
We all know the traditional story, a version of events summarized perfectly by this PBS documentary.
He was a young Greek-speaking Jew from outside Judea. He was a Pharisee.
Yeah, you know what?
Stridently committed to Jewish law. Luke puts these words in Saul's mouth.
Around midday, a bright light from heaven suddenly flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice say, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" I replied, "Who are you, Lord?" And he said to me, "I am Jesus of Nazareth."
You're a liar!
Notwithstanding the fact that Paul's revelation of Christ happened separate from any of the other disciples and lacks cooperation. According to the book of Acts, it happened after the ascension already took place, when Jesus would no longer be on earth hanging out and making appearances. According to the book of Acts, Jesus addressed his followers one last time. When he had said this, as they were watching, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight. That's when two men appeared to them and said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up toward heaven? This Jesus who has been taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." But wait, how did the disciples see Jesus ascend into heaven? In a cloud. How did the disciples teach that Jesus will return? In the sign of the Son of Man, coming on the clouds of heaven. Clouds, 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 clouds. The text is very clear to emphasize clouds.
He is risen.
How could Jesus appear to Paul when, according to the book of Acts, Jesus will not appear to anyone until he appears to everyone in the sign of the Son of Man?
Christians often ask Jewish people, how will they ever recognize the Messiah? And basically, it's the one event in human history which is impossible to miss. Anyone that looks out the window or reads the New York Times will be able to readily see that there's been a major change in the world, which the Bible describes as a time when the entire world will believe in God, and a time when there'll be no more human strife, and war and hatred and suffering will cease from the earth.
And while one could make the argument that Jesus was still in heaven when he appeared to Paul on the road to Damascus, this wasn't the only time that Jesus supposedly appeared to Paul. While the book of Acts leaves this episode out in chapter 9, during his speech to the crowds in Jerusalem in chapter 22, Paul claims that Jesus appeared to him in a trance on his first trip to Jerusalem as a believer. In Corinth, the Lord appeared to Paul in a vision one night. The night that Paul was saved by the Romans from the judgment of the Jewish Sanhedrin, the book of Acts says the Lord stood near him and said,
"Take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome."
And again, in 2 Corinthians, Paul claims to have been caught up to the heavens in a vision where Jesus told him,
"My grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect in weakness."
A voice in a blinding light is also not how Paul describes the process of Christ revealing himself in his authentic epistles.
"If I come again, I will not believe, since you desire proof that Christ is speaking in me."
Paul describes how Christ reveals himself to Paul by speaking inside of him, which is already suspect.
It wasn't me who killed her. It was Jeff.
"Christ is speaking in me."
What happened? Who did it?
Jeff.
"Christ is speaking in me."
Yeah. I'm sorry, this is going to be really hard to explain, but I kind of have another person inside me.
"Christ is speaking in me."
Like,
What happened to your mom?
he killed her. She snapped.
"Christ is speaking in me."
Alright, are you able to say who's with you?
"Christ is speaking in me."
I am by myself, me and Jeff.
"Christ is speaking in me."
But I swear it wasn't me. It was Jeff.
"Christ is speaking in me."
Jeff is inside me.
Jess is inside you?
Yes.
"Christ is speaking in me."
Okay.
He sometimes takes control.
"Christ is speaking in me."
And I've no control over him. I hate Jeb so much.
If Paul felt that he had another person speaking inside of him, then Paul more than likely suffered from mental illnesses, just like those who make the same claims. But Paul's vision of Jesus on the road to Damascus, as well as his continued revelations of Christ speaking inside of him, were nothing like the experiences of the original apostles and disciples. Not only does Paul's vision of the resurrected Jesus lack corroboration, but the book of Acts does not give a consistent version of it. In Acts 9, it says, "The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, because they heard the voice but saw no one." However, in Acts 22, it says that those with Paul saw the light but did not hear the voice. The exact opposite.
Contradiction!
But it's even more. Even the words Paul was told by the resurrected Jesus contradict each other from version to version. It starts as a simple sentence, just one verse in chapter 9 of the book of Acts. However, by the time Paul is recounting his vision in chapter 26 in the book of Acts, Paul's instructions from Jesus have now exploded in content, and are now a post hoc attempt to make Paul's conclusions into the plan from the beginning. I believe the New Testament itself demonstrates that Paul's vision on the road to Damascus was a lie. The evidence shows that it happened at the wrong time when Jesus was not making appearances on earth anymore, and there's not even a consistent version of the vision. Paul's initial experience was not his only time interacting with the risen Jesus, and Paul mostly interacted with Jesus speaking inside of him, like when the Spirit of Jesus wouldn't let Paul travel through a Roman province on his way to Macedonia. These continued revelations from Jesus do draw into question why there wasn't more continuity between what Jesus taught when he lived and breathed and what Paul teaches in his name after his death.
You know, I'm glad I met you, because now I can forget all about you. My Jesus is much more important and much more powerful.
If you want to explore more of how Paul was a false apostle sent in to infiltrate and take down the Jesus movement, then I couldn't recommend my book enough.
Yeah, you know what?